Well, someone in our house might have coronavirus, and I don't like that. Or two people.
Wait. 2 people.
Yeah.
Who?
Mother and
Father?
Laura.
How? Wait, why do they think this? Because they've got colds all the time.
Yeah. It's funny because you know how they almost like, it seems like they're in competition when they're ill, because one of them gets ill and then the other one straight away gets ill as well with like the exact same symptoms.
I feel like it's funny because for as much as those two like argue a lot and like they're usually the ones to kind of not fight, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there's that clear like parallel between them though at the same time where like yes, if Laura's ill, you'll know about it every single day and no matter what you've got, she's got it worse.
oh, absolutely.
And then Mum does the thing where she doesn't say it like she's got it worse. She doesn't like what's the word? Doesn't outdo you, but she'll just bring it up every 5 seconds. Like it'll be quiet and silent, and she'll go, "Ooh, my left elbow joint,
Ooh.
And you're like, "Oh, what's wrong?" But then it'll be like, "My elbow hurts, but also I've got a cold." It's like, well,
Yeah, it can never just be one thing either, can it? No,
yeah, like you don't ever know if we're ill. Like you would never know if unless we're dying or we've got AIDS. It's like you wouldn't know that.
yeah. I feel like I have to be really ill to make a big deal out of it. And like,
So wait, have they had like a test or?
Mum's had a test. She hasn't got it back yet.
That's so like.
I know.
This family has had more suspected cases of coronavirus than like anyone else in the world.
Without ever actually having it as well. That's the thing.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, if they do have it, it will be because of like. It's probably been passed on because do you remember like Jack had it like or nearly had it like twice?
Yeah.
But his tests all came back like
Negative.
Fine.
Yeah.
But then what would happen is Laura would have it and you'd find out that Jack is like a carrier, but it's because Laura keeps having him over just like randomly.
Willy-nilly.
Like, which is, if you're following the advice, if you're following the rules, you're following the rules. And if you're not, well, it's like, I feel like no one's following them except for like Nan.
Yeah, that's
technically like people like that. Like
that's how it feels, and it makes it so frustrating when like there's stuff that you can't do because of the rules, but you know that no one else is doing it.
yeah.
Like you can't have like family around on like Christmas and shit, but you know for a fact, yeah, everyone around you is going to be doing it.
Yeah, and like they were talking about like loads of scientists and like most of Parliament have been trying to be like, look, you need to. Did you see about it when they were like, you need to like cancel that idea of like, oh, the Christmas relaxation period?
Yeah.
And he said no, and it's like, of course no, because people aren't going to give a shit now. If you take that away from them now,
yeah, that
like no one gives a fuck unless you're going to send police and army out onto the streets. Like, it doesn't matter.
I love going back to like the very start of lockdown, like when it first went down and people thought like that's what was going to happen, like tanks and shit were going to be rolling down like the motorway and stuff, and like
or like 5 tanks that the British Army had.
Yeah, the fucking they were going to fill the what is it, the Wembley Stadium with a big lasagna to feed everyone.
To be fair, though, that would solve a lot of problems.
To be fair, I do like lasagna.
Yeah, you'd solve hunger. You'd solve depression.
Yeah, people wouldn't have to pay for a bunch of food. They could just go grab some lasagna. Sounds pretty good.
How would you serve it? How would you... You're in charge of this, imagine. How are you going to make sure that everyone in the UK gets their portion of lasagna?
Just one single line that people have to queue up for, and then they get...
Oh,
but
great.
you can... Obviously, you can't be in groups, and everyone has to... They can only take one slice, and if they take one that's too big...
They get shot.
They get shot on the spot.
Right, so there's 66.65 million people in the UK as of 20... Ooh, no, that's outdated. Ooh. 68 million, okay.
68.
So you've got you're saying that 68 million people are going to be in one single file line.
Yeah.
Like it's a line for like the lunch at school.
What's the
Cafeteria.
what's the motorway that basically surrounds London, like the M24,
Like the M40.
M40.
M40
Yes,
yeah.
it's gonna go like around there like 3 times.
Yeah, what you'd have to do, you'd have to ban cars for like a month of the year. No one can drive.
Yeah,
At least on those roads. And then that's the queue. But then you'd have people travelling from like Yorkshire
just to
on
get
foot.
it,
Like
and they don't even get a lot. They just get it's just like one portion, like one dinner
Per family as well. It's not even per person. You need to call this episode Lasagna Pilgrimage.
big lasagna.
The big lasagna pilgrimage.
Yeah, you got people like travel, like hiking down from like Norfolk just to come to Wembley, so they can get a fucking. And then because the thing is, because it'd be such a big lasagna, it'd be so deep. When you would cut a slice, you wouldn't get like a bunch of layers. You would just get like, you know, the meat. You wouldn't get like anything interesting.
I didn't even think about that. So you're going to have people fighting to probably get there last, actually, because you're going to take it from. You're going to take bits from the bottom, or you're going to have people on those like what are they called, like the kind of elevator crane things that like construction site workers use.
Oh, so you mean like would people be doing that, getting the slices for people, or do people have to cut their own slices?
Yeah, like is there going to be a man designated on a cherry picker going up and down, cutting a slice, going down? Because then you'd want to get there last, because at least then, well, on preference, because then you get like the cheese and maybe a little bit of meat.
Well, I'd want to go first because you would presume that they would go from the top, like top left down, the motion I'm doing with my hand.
Yeah.
They go up, start at the bottom, keep going down until that like section, that square is all done. Then they'd move on. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She literally looks like some fucking ghost.
She does.
Like Paranormal Activity, some kind
Mhm.
of shit like that.
Oh, thank you.
Get away from him if you've got COVID.
Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. Let me
Oh, am I interrupting it?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Can talk.
Mum, have you got COVID?
This is still coming out of my. Yeah, he just asked if you have COVID.
I don't know. I'm still waiting for my results.
And you're stood next to your son.
Yep, she is stood right next to me.
Okay.
Don't know why it's coming out.
Bye, mummy.
Bye.
Bye. Love you both.
Love you too. Oh.
Yeah. I was going to say, going back to that the big pilgrimage of lasagna thing. I love the idea that someone like very far away in the north, like they leave their home. It's like a disheveled, like they look normal. They've got like 2 kids and it's man, wife, 2 kids. They go out there, they travel, they look fine. But then by the time they arrive in London or wherever, like they end up looking like Moses. Or like they're in rags.
Yeah,
and
they've got like
beards.
got
All
wood
of them have got beards.
sandals. Yeah. No, see,
They're riding like donkeys.
that'd be pretty cool. I was picturing more like the movie The Road, how they've got like the shopping cart with all their earthly possessions in. The dad, like Viggo Mortensen, teaches his son how to kill himself in case he gets kidnapped by the cannibals.
He teaches him to kill himself if he doesn't get the best slice of lasagna.
Yeah, it's that, but with lasagna. That's all. Like, and it's not even like food is run out. Like, there's still a bunch of like stores and stuff they could like go and get, but they don't want that because they have to get the lasagna.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
because the lasagna's been like enriched as well. It's got like proteins that could help you like live longer.
Yeah, you take
it's like
no, it's just a normal lasagna. It's just really good, apparently.
But then what you do is you you don't tell anyone when the last lasagna piece is gone. So the last 2 million people that get there, you quarter them off and you just execute them.
Because they were the last people.
And it's like, well, you've done a good deed, but now you've got to kind of balance out the population. Actually, I was looking through the notes on my phone, and there was one thing. I was going to obviously ask like a question at some point, like a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And it was going to be, what would you do if you were like Prime Minister?
What would I do?
Yeah.
Well, for starters, I'd filled Wembley Stadium with a big lasagna.
That's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, you seem like you've maybe got a good idea since you came up with the question. You answer and I have a think.
I didn't really have a good answer though. Honestly, I was just gonna say like, I would get like I'm thinking more of like preservation. Like, I try, obviously you want to start by like reducing emissions and all that shit. You want to help that way, but like poverty as well. What I would do, I would find the hottest girl in the whole of the UK. I would find the hottest man in the whole of the UK.
Okay.
And essentially, I would find loads of them, like all the hottest, the top 10% of hottest like chads and
10% still a lot of people. And is this all age ranges as well? Is it like...
No, like just like pristine, like they've got, I don't know, in between 20 and 30, I suppose. You get them, you put them into a compound, and you make them like all have sex, just constantly.
Okay, what would be the purpose in doing this?
So, you keep birthing all these incredible babies.
Okay.
Obviously, you'd have to bring them up in like Bacta tanks or something, like things that you speed up their growth.
Okay. All right.
Until you have like a good population that are all super healthy, they all look great, they smell great, and then, you're gonna have to go around and then you have to track down like the worst looking and most impoverished people, and then take them out. Maybe send them into some sort of chambers.
Replace them.
Yeah.
With these. Okay.
So essentially, 50 years from now, the UK will have like a population that's under control because we've gone around killing all the other people, and they're all great looking.
Yeah, but what
like,
purpose
the genes
does
are
that
fantastic.
What purpose does that serve to like a society?
Okay, let's just say that these people are so perfect that, great cheekbones, jawlines, breasts, hair. But they don't have anything like, they don't have any cancer cells they'll never get cancer, they'll never get anything, they'll never get Alzheimer's or MS.
Okay, well, because that was my biggest question, because I was thinking just because someone's attractive, that doesn't mean they have good genes. You know.
No, I know, but this is what I mean. It's not just looks, it's also like genetic perfection.
That's a very finite amount of the population. That would take you quite a while to sort that out.
Yeah, but this is a matter of like we're dead by this point. This is like 2,000 years from now.
Well, why do I care then if I'll be dead when it's all over? And if what you're saying is true, I would end up getting killed. I don't have good genes.
No, you've got like Jewish looks and stuff. Like, be fine. Like, you've got
that's not a good thing. An increased risk of diabetes, cancer, all that shit. I'd be
fine.
dead.
Well, all right, we'd have to take a hit then ourselves. Like, yeah. But I don't know. That would just be my big grand plan.
Okay.
Well, the only thing is, I suppose, like one day when aliens come down or something finds us, we'll all look the same. It'll be like multiples of the same man and woman.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that.
No, that's kind of boring.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really boring society. I wouldn't want to watch a show like Seinfeld if George Costanza was like a chiseled, like 6'4" Chad, like total Giga Chad. Like, 'cause then it wouldn't work.
Yeah, but that's what they're going to do for the reboot.
He'll be a black like basketball player who's buff as shit.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that? There's a music video for Jay-Z's song Moonlight, and they recreate an episode of Friends, but it's all black people. It's, you know, the episode where Ross has like a big event and he's all like in his tuxedo.
Yeah. Is that the one where they don't leave the apartment?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, they like recreate that, but it's just black people and they're like taking the piss out of it's a good song.
And they've actually used the actual set as well.
Yeah.
Kind of cool, but why?
Yeah. I mean, this isn't really related to what I'm talking about. It's just because we were saying about George Costanza being a black Giga Chad.
Wait, so where? I'm just looking at it, and it's like, oh, you got like, oh, okay, they've got like a few like Lakeith Stanfield in it, and
yeah, it's like it's pretty notable actors and actresses as well. But it's just a music video,
and it keeps cutting off like between the sets. It goes into the set, and they're just chatting.
Yeah, it's got Hannibal Buress in it. He's like the director.
It's kind of cool. That's kind of weird though as well. What if we? Right, you know what I'm gonna do? What if Eminem did a video where it's an episode of The Fresh Prince, but they're all white?
I think that'd be funny.
It'd be funny, but
what would be the purpose of it? Because that's like that. I think works because it's like a parody. And it's like kind of a nice story.
But is there a reason that like? Yeah, see, it's funny, isn't it? When like, if black culture do something like that, it's not like weird. It's just a parody because you're like, oh, well, they just have all these people like around them. Whereas if Eminem did a white version of a Fresh Prince episode, people would be like, oh, well, why are you whitewashing it? Because that would kind of be strange. Like that would be almost like, oh, you're trying to make a point.
Yeah. It would be.
Whereas with Friends, it's not the case. That's really odd.
Yeah, I didn't think about it too much. I just thought it was funny.
Well, I was gonna.
Well,
and I were watching. Oh, we haven't even introduced what would.
Well, first of all, I never said what I would do if I was Prime Minister.
Yeah, but we've already moved past it.
Okay, well, we'll come back to it later.
Okay, go on.
I mean, mine was just a sort of very actual serious answer. It was just like, so it's not that interesting. It's just like about market control and like helping the economy and shit. Maybe reducing the prison population might be nice.
How would you manage that?
Well, I'll bring back the death penalty, obviously. No, I mean, you'd have to like reduce poverty in certain areas and like get more police out on the streets. You know, taking down young knife carrying folks. I don't know. No, I don't know the ins and outs of
social politics and governing it. I imagine it would be. Imagine though, like the government always needs funding from somewhere, and that's how that's the best way to help things like poverty, funding into jobs, funding and stuff like that. If you did bring back the death penalty, and how would you justify? What would be the lowest thing that can get the death penalty? What would be the least, like, extreme thing?
Well, how do you, like, scale what's worse? Because
that's the thing. You would have to come up with this. Like,
yeah, okay.
Would you change it so that petty theft is...
Maybe, like... I would want to get rid of all the people... If the show We Can't Pay, We'll Take It Away.
Yeah.
I want all those people gone. I don't want to have to deal with any of those people.
Yeah, but the problem is, you've watched the show. Sometimes they have genuine, like, sad stories, and they're trying to get help.
So?
Good point.
No, I
agree.
have
to be ruthless.
No, I agree. There's people out there who need help, and that's fine. But when you have the people who don't want help, they take advantage of other people, and they think they can get away with it because with the way you know, UK housing laws and shit work, they can.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to deal with those people. They're fucking annoying.
We're a very lenient country. We bend over backward to fucking everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even things called dog vouchers here. So you could have, say, a woman who's a single mum. She could get a council house and weekly benefits, fine. Because it's never that much anyway. Like, it's really low. It's barely enough to actually survive both of them. But if she got a dog, you then get dog vouchers, or essentially money. You get benefits to pay for the dog. But obviously, that's not going to go on the dog. That's going to go on you.
No.
Don't know. There's a lot of things that are really screwed up about this country. But, like, I feel like our prison, like, justice system is okay compared to, like, America...
Yeah,
Australia, like...
I think it's more messed up when it comes to like smaller things, like if you get caught like speeding or something, like, or like a parking fine, like some of the fines you get can be ridiculous, especially for what they are.
It's funny that, like, okay, you have like speed cameras. Half the time they don't work. Half the time they're like they were manually controlled, and it's like, clearly they know that if it was an automatic thing, if it was smart enough system so that if you sped past at all, you would instantly get a fine, which isn't always the case. I think the government know that the amount of money it would take to send out fines, the amount of money it would take to take people to court if they didn't want to pay it, is too much hassle. So you end up with like 50-50 chance of people getting action. I know for a fact that, like, I've driven, say, 60 miles an hour down a 60 road before and it's been fine. And then someone's overtaken me at like 90 and there's a speed camera. Guarantee that they wouldn't get anything. But if I went 62 miles an hour, I'll get a fine. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because you can very easily be both people as well. Like, because sometimes like nothing happens. It's really frustrating as well.
I suppose it's like, would you give... Okay, so say one of the death penalties you can get is for stealing a baby.
Stealing a baby.
Stealing a baby. But listen, this person steals a baby from a household where he thinks the baby is being neglected or abused. Right. How would you... If say there was evidence that there was some kind of mistreatment going on, but not enough to warrant like the baby being taken away by the family naturally, what would you do to the person who stole the baby thinking he's doing the right thing?
Well, obviously I don't know the specific circumstances because this is just a hypothetical thing, but like, I wouldn't want to just like let him off super easy, but I also wouldn't want to kill him. So I think it'd be finding some middle ground with that, because you still have to set an example that stealing children is wrong, but in some cases...
You kill the baby in front of him. No, that's horrible. Maybe you could like, chop off a finger or something.
Isn't that like in like Saudi Arabia or something? Like if you get caught stealing from a market, they like just chop off your hand.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it like a hand or is it a finger at first and then?
That. I mean, I think that's a bit barbaric, to be honest. But like that, I think that idea of like a smaller punishment of like taking off a finger. What's another version of that? Like. You have to go live on the streets for a week, or you get put in prison for a couple of days. I don't know.
Some kind of that's a good. That kind of.
It shouldn't be permanent. Any punishment you give.
Yeah, you should put them into like a Running Man contest.
So yeah. I mean,
what you do is you set up a Running Man contest, and then you get like corporations from around the world to place adverts on it, so you get sponsored by them. So we'll get money coming into the UK from all these countries because we've got the first Running Man show.
That is kind of cool, to be honest.
Yeah. I was going to ask a stupid question as well. I was going to say, okay, say the guy steals the baby, but he has a jetpack and he leaves out of the roof. He flies out of the roof and it causes like the house to sort of not collapse, but like damage. Then you find out that the baby was never being mistreated and it was all a big misunderstanding. Do you? I don't know. Do you don't kill the guy? But then he also completely destroyed their house. Like, what kind of punishment does that?
I mean, I'd want to know where he got this jetpack from, to be honest. That's all I really want to know. Like...
Woolworths.
Well, they don't have Woolworths anymore. How did he... How did he get into a Woolworths?
Well, he did that with his time travel machine, obviously.
Oh, obviously. Okay, that's fine then.
All right.
I mean...
You know what, talking about... Oh, go on.
No, I had nothing else to add.
I was just going to say, like, talking of, like, punishment and stuff, I want to... I was thinking really morbidly the other day about, like, the worst torture and, like, the worst deaths recorded in
You always think
history.
about this kind of shit, and I hate it.
I know, but, like, everyone knows... I think we've even discussed it before. You got stuff like torture devices, like the brazen bull and all this shit. But I actually wanted to find a guy who has, like, had the worst recorded death ever. And I found this guy. Right?
Do you want a live leak? Like, what?
Well, see, I was thinking more like recorded history in the sense of, like, it's well documented instead of just a video. Like, yeah, I mean, we've all seen some shit on Live Leak and...
Right. Okay, is what you're about to tell me going to be really sad? Or is it going to be funny?
Oh, it's not funny, but it's kind of cool. But it's cool in the sense that this guy... Okay, look. I'll read about it, right? So this guy was called Belfast Girard. That's already a badass name.
That's a really cool name.
And he was the assassin of the Dutch independence leader, William I of Orange, or William the Silent, in the 1500s, all right? And he was, like, a big admirer of King Philip, and he thought that Philip should be, like... He thought that basically this William the Silent guy was, like, he was ruining all the systems put in place by the king, all this shit. I didn't really look too much into it. But he basically went into this courtroom and this, like, gala that was taking place and shot him, like, twice with 2 pistols. The guy didn't die for, like, an hour. And, right, I'll read what happened. So...
Right.
Let me just get to the bit. So after he shot this guy, he fled through a side door and ran across a narrow lane. I kind of imagine this as like Assassin's Creed 2 or something in my head.
Oh, that like just press R2 to do some cool free running.
Yeah. He had almost reached... He was being pursued by a bunch of the guards and like the guy's personal security guy. He jumped across the ramparts into a moat. And he actually had a pig's bladder around his waist so that if he fell into the moat or the river, he would keep afloat.
You could do that?
His idea was to just get washed away. It didn't happen, and then he had to end up getting out of the moat and running, and he tripped over something and was caught by a bunch of people.
Right.
So then... let's just see. Okay, so he went under examination by the magistrates. And he reportedly showed he didn't show any despair, and instead he was just like it was almost like V for Vendetta. He was just very like for what he believed in, like he didn't give a shit. And then it says they decreed that the right hand of Girard should be burned off with red hot iron, that his flesh should be torn from his bones in 6 different places and from different angles. Then he should be quartered and disemboweled alive, with his heart being torn from his bosom and flung in his face. Then, after that, his head should be taken off. So, that's already bad enough. Imagine being in that position where you've done this thing because you think it's for the good of your country. And this is what they've told you is going to happen to you. Like, fair enough if you didn't know. If they were, like, behind the scenes, they're like, right, we're going to torture this guy and do this shit to him. But at least you don't know it's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I don't know what's worse,
So maybe
actually. Knowing
it-
what's going to happen or not.
was it Anne Boleyn or someone who, when she was executed, they usually they would like get you to like kneel down and then like put your head down and they'd like count down, sort of. But instead, before they even like told her to kneel down, the guy, the like executioner, just like quickly like took her head off, like while she wasn't even
I didn't know
looking,
that.
because he
Wow.
apparently liked
Oh, he yeah, okay, that rings a
liked
bell.
her for whatever reason, and he wanted to make it a quicker, easier death.
At least, like, if you were just being executed that way, like we did in England, it's like, okay, it's going to be in an instant.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the one thing I can imagine is like when they were burning like witches and traitors, like burning at the stake and stuff. Like,
Well, we never, as far as I know, we never actually burnt witches in England. That was more of an American thing.
yeah, and it was like a German and Dutch thing.
Yeah,
Well, especially German. Like, there was an entire town that was eradicated by one guy who wanted to just murder everyone who he thought was a witch.
Yeah. Well, we had Matthew Hopkins, the witch hunter general, I think he was called.
Yeah.
And he just went town to town, drowning witches, hanging them, whatever he could do.
I'm going to find...
Because he got paid per witch he found.
exactly.
So he just, like, literally would find old women and say, yeah, witch.
Oh, so... I mean, he was, like, yeah, notorious for just, like, having this... Wasn't there, like, accounts that he was like, yeah, witches don't exist?
Probably, I think so.
Like, in secret, but then he was like, fuck it, I'm getting paid to, like, barbarically kill and torture people I don't like. So in Germany in 1600s, the Wurzburg witch trial is one of the biggest mass trials and mass executions ever seen in Europe.
Oh my god. It's kind of cool.
Where over 900 people were killed by essentially one guy, and the population of the country anyway was about 1,200 people.
Jeez.
So this guy eradicated.
He
a small
destroyed
town.
an entire town. That's
Apparently,
kind
it
of
got to the point
though.
where people were so paranoid that, like, there was one case of like there were two twins, and just because they were twins, the guy was like, "Yep, them, let's get them."
Let's get rid of them.
Or one little girl was playing with a cat, and obviously, when you talk to your dogs, you talk to your cats. Because this little girl was like talking to the cat, like she was like 4 years old, she was killed as well. It's like,
Well, they had because they believed witches had their what are they called, like their
guardians, like,
and they had to like suck the blood out of the witch, and so if you had two moles that were like slightly, or like freckles even, that were just too close together, they'd think that was like the spot they sucked the blood out of you, so they'd have to. So if in that case they'd kill you.
we were so dumb.
We're really stupid.
Fucking stupid people, but then it makes for interesting reading. I was gonna say, so oh, go on.
Oh, it's just another similar thing to that. I read about this like early idea of like a vampire in America, and there was this family where like 3 of the women in it had died like fairly close to each other, all for like, I think it was like tuberculosis, but they didn't know that at the time. So they and you know, all the people in their town thought they were like possessed, or they were like demons or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had a brother who had left to like, because he got sick, so he went to like these healing springs somewhere, and then when he came back he was still really ill.
Yeah.
And the townspeople, they thought that the 3 women who had died were like witches or vampires or something, and were sucking his soul from the afterlife. So they what they did is they dug up the bodies and like cut gutted them up and like mixed all their like organs and shit into a potion and made the brother drink it.
Wait, this wasn't in like New Orleans, was it? Like,
It could have been. I don't remember where it was.
I feel like I might have seen something like this on like one of those 20 worst ways to die, and then it all like goes into like the history of something like that.
It's very New Orleans voodoo thing.
Did he die?
I think so, yeah. I mean,
Because they had tuberculosis and he just drank.
he drank their dead boy.
They should bring that back as like a special shot. That sounds like some hardcore Mexican shit.
It's like a Bloody Mary, except it's actually blood.
It's just the plague.
It's the blood.
The
of
London plague.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
The bubonic bomber. That's what we're calling. That's pretty cool. Actually, yeah. I love all that kind of shit, especially when you like Mexico and stuff, with like the original like Day of the Dead and vampire stuff that was going on.
It's Mexico where the.
I just want to finish this thing about this guy because
go on.
We've heard about everyone knows like worse kind of torture and stuff like than this, but the fact that this guy went through a bunch of shit all at one go. Usually they would do like, okay, we're gonna cut off your hand, and then we're gonna behead you, or we're just gonna behead you. This guy had everything. So
he had the whole shebang.
Basically, this one's not as in detail as the article I read before, but you get the point. On the first night of his imprisonment, Girard was hung on a pole and lashed with a whip. But he was hung essentially with like you'd see in like BDSM things. Like his arms like way up behind him and his legs up to his hands and upside down.
Yeah.
So the blood kept like rushing to his head as well. Next, his wounds were smeared with honey, and a goat was brought in to lick the honey off his skin. I mean, that doesn't even sound like torture, to be honest. But what makes me laugh is this little bit of information, right? The goat, however, refused to touch his body.
Yeah, I wonder why.
That goat's got standards. After several other forms of torture, he was left to pass the night with his hands and feet still bound together, like a ball. So he was literally pushed into a ball shape. He didn't sleep, obviously. During the following 3 days, he was repeatedly flogged, and hung on a pole with his hands tied behind his back. Then a weight of 300 metric pounds, 150 kilograms, was attached to each of his big toes for half an hour at a time.
Oh, I hate hearing this shit.
Because it's so specific, and it's like, why?
It's not just
why
like, they whipped him.
This?
It's like, no, they attached shit to his big toes.
It's nuts. Just afterwards, Girard was fitted with shoes made of well-oiled, uncured dog skin. The shoes were 2 fingers shorter than his actual feet. Right?
Right.
In this state, with the shoes on, he was put before a fireplace. His feet were then placed into the fire. As the shoes heated up, they contracted, crushing his feet inside them to stumps.
That's
When the
awful.
shoes were removed, his half-broiled skin was just ripped off. After his feet were damaged, his armpits were then branded and the skin was peeled off. He was then dressed in a shirt soaked in alcohol so that the pain would be excruciating. Lastly, burning bacon fat was poured over him and sharp nails were stuck between the flesh and the nails of his hands and feet and was ripped apart. This is the bit though, this is why I read this.
Why do you have to tell me this shit?
Sorry. But look, Girard is said to have remained absolutely calm during his torture and was... Oh, okay, it's frozen. But essentially, the people torturing him actually commended him, and they were like, we can't believe, like, no one's ever been like that. Apparently, he was dead silent through all of this.
I think at that point, I imagine you would just pass out.
That's the thing, like... But, you know, this is the thing is, like, I wish... Like, I kind of had more faith, or like, if you were devoted to a god, like they all were back then, apparently he was so like calm and accepting because he had so much faith in God and that he thought he had done the right thing. That like he was just fine. He just accepted it. And it's like, if you didn't have any of that, if you didn't have faith or anything, you would be in agony. Like you would just, I don't know.
I mean, that's a lot to put a person through, and they still would like believe in, I don't know, their god or whatever.
It's just like, imagine being in that pain, because like if the pain is quick enough, you're like, okay, it's over with. But the foot thing in the fire, like they just left him there for like 2 hours. Imagine that, like you hold your hand over the handle for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and it hurts, but you can move your hand away instantly.
Just like, ooh, ow, that hurt. Why did I do that?
The funny thing is, though, so after his death, Philip II, who was the king that he devoted his life to, and obviously like assassinated this guy on behalf of him, rewarded 25,000 crowns, 3 country estates, and the family were the guy's family were like lauded essentially, so they were given like huge high status by this guy.
That's
and he
cool.
basically gave all of his estates to him when he died. Like, so this guy killing himself, his family benefited massively.
That's kind of cool. I'm glad it wasn't for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently William the Orange, or whatever I said, apparently he was a prick, and he kind of ruined his country. So there you go.
Yeah, he deserved it. Still, it's horrible, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you think of like Guy Fawkes, like the whole thing going on with that. Like, he wanted to destroy Parliament, which people back then would consider worse than just killing like a queen or a king. Yeah. And it's like, he was just beheaded or whatever happened to him. It's like he wasn't given that much of a hard time.
He was hung, drawn, and quartered, wasn't he?
Oh, I think so, yeah. Oh, yeah, because his head was on the pike. And
that was like the standard thing to do to like terrorists at that time.
That was like the first Patreon like tier level, essentially.
Yeah, you could just normally get hung, or you could,
But yeah, sorry to bring you down. I'm also going to bring you down again.
Oh god.
Sorry.
Well, you telling me this reminded me of another story I'd heard that really bummed me out.
Yeah, no.
It's about this woman called Blanche Munier. She was like
oh no.
Do you know?
I've heard. Yeah, go on though.
Yeah, she was like a French aristocrat who I forget the exact story, but I think she just like she wanted to marry someone like below her station, and her mum, who was like insane, wouldn't allow that. But this Blanche woman wouldn't give up. She wanted to go be with this man, whatever. So the mother locked her in their attic and blocked off all light from that room. And she was up there for 25 years. And there's a photo of, because after she had a brother, and the brother knew about this, and I think he was a bit weird in the head, so he never did anything about it. But eventually someone heard her screaming from the room 25 years later and got the police to go in and get her. And there's a photo of what she looked like, and it's one of the most upsetting things I've ever seen.
I don't even know if we should put this on the thing.
No, I won't.
No.
It's
really... And I've seen it. I don't want to look it up again, but
yeah, it's like those like old Ripper photos, of like the murders and shit. But she was still alive. That's the thing.
That's like, that's one of those things that's just like human cruelty. That's just something that someone's done to someone that's just. Oh yeah, I just looked at it. I really wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
Because it's like the comparison photo.
Yeah, she's like this beautiful like French aristocrat. And then
that's so like that's just what happened? Did she like what happened?
As far as I know, I think she survived, but not for very long. Let me look it up.
Because like, what did she survive on?
I think the mother gave her like very minimal amounts of food or something. I don't know exactly. The Awful Tale. Let's see. Filmdaily.co. Don't know why film
God.
website's posting about this. She was finally discovered when she was 50 years old. She weighed 55 pounds, which is, I don't know what that is in kilograms, but it's not a lot. That's like the size. It's like the weight of like a small child, and this was a full-grown woman. Did she die? I want to know. Yeah, that's. Sorry, this is silent while I'm reading this.
I'm just looking. Yeah, so she only ate scraps from her mother's meals. Yes, you're right. So she was given her some sort of food. She died in a sanitarium.
Ah.
So, I mean, I suppose where else would you put her after something like that? You couldn't rehabilitate someone like that.
Yeah. The mother who did it to her, she was, sentenced to, I don't know. It doesn't say what she was sentenced to, but she died 15 days into, being in prison or whatever. So that kind of sucks.
It's insane. Like, these stories are horrible. Like, there was not a similar thing at all, but there was another story when I was looking up about worst deaths. There was a Japanese or Chinese girl who was, she was like the daughter of a rich, wealthy family in Japan. I think it was Japan. And some Japanese, like almost Yakuza level gangs kidnapped her originally for a ransom.
Yeah.
But instead they did like unimaginable things for her for like, I think they had her for like 2 years.
Oh, God.
And all this, and like she had like 2 arms that they cut off, like her legs as well. They had like raped her like 400 times a week. It's like stuff like that, and you're just like, you wish you could almost, if you had a time machine, you would go back and try and stop shit like this.
Yeah, I mean,
but
God, that's just awful.
Ugh. But in
yeah,
happier news,
let's change the subject.
Star-Lord is gay. Oh, I'm sorry, bisexual.
Yeah, he's bisexual. They're totally different things. First of all, why?
Don't know.
But I saw
Does Marvel want it?
This really frustrates me because you can't just throw out information like this and expect it to mean anything. Like, unless it's relevant to the story whatsoever, then who gives a shit?
But this is the answer that like comic book and like the kind of pop culture answer to the past 5 years of inclusion and stuff like that is, oh well, we need to have something to say. We need something important in each of our stories. Like,
what are they trying to say? What is their statement? That it's okay to be bisexual, sure, but who gives a shit unless you express that in a meaningful storytelling way?
So I'm looking at this article says, here's the background. Having apparently been killed in an explosion, it's revealed that Peter survived and now exists in a parallel reality. He spends 144 years in that reality working with 2 aliens, a female and a male, and eventually entered a relationship with both of them. So you could read into that and it's like, okay, well, if in the story for that long length of time, you would probably end up in a thing with both of them. Like,
yeah.
But now, like, him coming out of that is he's now bisexual and polyamorous and he loves like everything. And it's like, it's just, oh man, like, okay, like, fine. Like, but now it's like, I've seen loads of memes where it's Chris Pratt like shaking his fist in anger, like the Arthur, and it's him waking up and reading it and he's just screaming.
He was probably never told this.
No, because now they're gonna add something like this in. Like, they're gonna have to.
They won't. No, they won't.
They'll do a passing comment because Disney are too scared to go the whole way.
Because this, in no way, I'm sure James Gunn had nothing to do with this decision.
No, can't imagine that. Oh, I hope so not. But
as far as I know, he writes all of the Guardians stuff, doesn't he?
yeah,
It was probably just some Disney executives needed something in the news, so they just threw this kind of information out there.
yeah. What makes me a bit worried though, or not worried, because it's like it comes across like I don't like appreciate, everyone of all in types, but it's like there's a time and a place for it in certain stories or like characters. Like come up with original stuff. Stop going back and making characters that existed for this long, then have a drastic change of heart. But Dave Bautista came out in an interview like the day before this came out, and he was talking about the next Guardians film, and he was saying things like, yeah, there's going to be some big changes that not everyone's going to like to certain characters. And it's like, oh, now I can see what he might mean. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but then that can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, maybe he's gay.
Maybe, yeah, Dave Bautista
Drax
is like, I'm gay, so you know what? Drax also has to be gay. This is a bit of a side note, but you know the whole Ellen to Elliot Page thing?
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that I don't know whether to call them but he's still playing. Elliot Page is still playing the same character in Umbrella Academy, but that character is obviously a female character. So I don't know where that falls in the line of political correctness.
I suppose it's fine because it's her. Sorry, fucking hell. Yeah. It's him who's made the decision to be like. Because I guarantee that the Netflix writers and execs were probably like, "How do you want to play this?" And it does seem like perhaps he was like, "No, I still want to be the character. I'm still an actor, so I'm now a man playing a female character." It's like, okay.
I think where my head's at is more that if it was the other way around, or if it was different circumstances, people wouldn't be okay with it.
So say you were an actor, you're straight, you whatever. Now you're going to play a transgender person. Yeah. Like you're going to... But then certain people get away with it. It's like Jared Leto in Dallas Buyers Club. Like, what is he?
Yeah.
Like...
Well... Yeah, it's weird because obviously you're not allowed to have someone like Hank Azaria voice an Indian guy in The Simpsons anymore. But you can have, what's the name of the guy who voices Kratos? Obviously, black man playing a white Greek god. Like yeah. I don't have any issue with either one. I don't care about any of this, but it's when people kind of have double standards that frustrates me. When they say this is okay, but this isn't.
Well, this is the thing. Like, yeah, that's a good example of like Kratos being a white guy, Greek, being played by I've got Christopher something, but yeah, a black guy who is I don't know where he's from, but it's like I don't know, like what happens when I'm trying to think of something that they could remake that's iconically. Okay, so they do Willy Wonka. I don't know, like Willy Wonka and it's a black guy.
A black guy playing Willy Wonka? Or
no, let's say it's Willy Wonka, but it's a black guy in white makeup playing a white Willy Wonka.
I mean,
no one's going to get mad at that because it's a black guy.
But if it was the other way around,
yeah,
it would.
I know that's the stupidest example anyone could possibly.
You know what? I mean, I thought it was funny. I saw a photo, like yesterday, of Eddie Murphy when he was on doing Norbit, and obviously he not only plays himself, he plays Norbit, he plays Rasputia, a large black woman. He also plays an old Asian guy in the movie.
Yeah.
And like again, no one really cares about that because it's a great movie.
But then you have like Rob Schneider playing are a super over the top racist character in almost everything he's in, especially in that Eight Crazy Date, the Hanukkah animated film.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He plays this small little Asian, like Jewish. I don't know, but it's really over the top and it's really like bad. But no one said a thing back then, and it's not like that. This brings me to so for anyone watching this, we were watching the Goonies the other morning, as most people do.
Great movie.
Fantastic movie, and we noticed the description, instead of giving any plot about the film, now just gives you a little thing saying that
I think
it's had outdated attitudes.
Yeah, I think I forget what the exact phrasing was, but it was like, this film contains outdated attitudes, references, and like remarks and stuff that some people will find offensive nowadays. And we watched basically the entire movie, and we could not find something that, you know, people would really find offensive.
No,
or stuff that should be offensive. I don't know.
I suppose there were certain things on a granular level you could be like, well, all right, well, maybe that accent is over the top, or sloth at first, like the makeup and how he portrays him. But no one looks like that. No one has those issues. It's like, you can pick out parts of Sloth's character and be like, okay, that is... Like, obviously got inspiration from people who had handicaps and stuff, but he's a hero.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he's not painted in a negative light at all.
No.
He's a good-hearted character. He's, you know, a genuinely good person. He's funny. They never actually make fun of him for having...
No, they don't at all.
Like,
and he loves Baby Ruth, so it's like,
he loves Baby Ruths.
Great sponsorship deal. But I think we were saying, like, if there was someone, if that was a tip, if I don't know, maybe I'm being ignorant, but if that, say the way he looks and what's wrong with him in the film, if that was a real life thing, and they got an actor, like how they have some shows have people with Down syndrome playing a character with Down syndrome,
or another example is Walter Jr. in Breaking Bad is played by a guy who actually has cerebral palsy.
Yeah, so it's like, if the guy playing Sloth had those issues, would people still be like, oh, it's out, you know, this is offensive? Probably not.
I feel like actually people would I don't know why, just for some reason I feel like people would find that more offensive.
What, because of the way he's written? And it's like he's got to just scream and shout and go,
yeah, it's just like mumbles and stuff.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, you can't fucking win.
No.
The only way you can win is if you're part of the group who are attacking, like, these, you know.
Yeah,
but I found a list, right? So this was something Sky did. Sky being a broadcaster in the UK. And I found a list of the films that they've done this to. And there are reasons given, right?
Okay.
So, you've got things like Breakfast in Tiffany's. The only non-white character in the film, Mr. Unioshi, is played by white actor Mickey Rooney. Now, this goes back to the Rob Schneider thing of, like, he is known for doing these accents. This is why he was funny in the first place. Mickey Rooney was always like, I mean, in Honeymooners, like, putting on all these accents and stuff like that. It's like,
he always played like very outrageous characters.
Yeah. So perhaps I can see that because he wears fake teeth and puts on a Japanese accent. Okay.
I mean, I'm not fully aware with my Breakfast at Tiffany's lore, but is he supposed to be a humorous character? Like, is he?
Yeah. Kind of.
Okay.
The next one is The Jungle Book, both the original and the Jon Favreau live action one. And the reason is, there have been suggestions the character of King Louis, which did not feature in Kipling's original novel, implied inequality between African Americans and Caucasians. It's also been claimed the character's portrayal is based on what white people thought black people were like at the time. His poor linguistic skills.
Are they actually being serious? Like, that sounds like a joke someone would make.
It does. It sounds like a sarcastic kind of joke.
I don't think you could really consider King Louis from the Jungle Book offensive? Like, I just don't get it.
But it's the fact that, like, this isn't on a fact. There has been suggestions and it's been claimed. So these are just opinions from people who weren't alive at the time. So they don't know how the writers believed. They don't know what they thought. Another one is Aladdin. Critics have expressed concerns over the story's use of Orientalist stereotypes.
But, like, again, what part of that? Because that whole movie, you know, you could consider a stereotype. What are they talking about specifically? Is it like Jafar? Is he because he's a mean guy, a mean Arabian guy with a mustache?
It doesn't say, actually. Or the only other thing it says is that casting decisions have come under scrutiny, with Aladdin, Princess Jasmine, and Genie being played by white actors.
Well, they are called...
Genie is blue!
Genie is... he's very blue. He's not a real person.
What are we going to do? Get in the fucking Shrek live-action film, are we going to get a man who's green? Are we going to have to have...
Yes.
Should Mike Myers be fired now? Like, should we go back and say, you're cancelled, Mike?
Yes.
Because you weren't green, and you're not an ogre?
Yes.
He wasn't a cat in Cat in the Hat. He's not a fucking cat in the Hat.
He's not a real cat.
Now, I will tell you, there is one coming up on this list which I had to cool down before we started recording, and I'm before you came on the call, because this will do it for you, I think. Because I was reading through the list, and I was just like, how's that film on there? Scrolled down, saw the reason why, nearly had an aneurysm.
Okay, right. What is it?
Well, first off, I'm just going to say the Goonies is on here, and it says, and this is what I thought, the portrayal of Data, a gadget freak who helps the boys in situations, speaks in a stereotypically Asian accent. However, the actor doesn't have this accent in real life. Even though he also played him in Indiana Jones, and he didn't get called out for being like, Indy, Dr. Jones! Dr. Jones!
but again, Data is a great character.
Exactly. He gets them out of situations. Like
he helps them. He's a good-hearted, nice character. He's not portrayed in a negative light at all.
No. It's just this whole, like, it's just like nitpicking. Like, imagine if we discover that the North Pole is real in the sense of, like, Santa's workshop and elves are real. We enter into a contact with them. They become part of our United Nations.
Yeah.
What happens when they watch Elf? Or any film that portrays an elf? The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause.
Yeah, they're going to get so pissed when they see that. And they're like, Tim Allen, what's he doing in the movie? He said the M-word. Like, unbelievable.
I don't know. But here is the one that really... I just don't get it. Aliens.
Aliens.
The 1986 action masterpiece.
Directed by Sir James Cameron.
Sir.
I don't know if he's a sir. Classic, great movie. One of the greatest sci-fi action movies of all time.
Yeah.
Probably one of my favourite sci-fi movies ever. Why is it offensive?
Well, I want you to guess. I want you to give me, like, a couple of reasons why you think... Put yourself in the mindset of the biggest SJW kind of activist.
I mean, my first thought was that maybe something like Vasquez, even though I don't know why, because she's a great character. She's awesome. She's a total badass. But then I'm thinking maybe it's more like symbolic than that. Maybe it's like the xenomorphs are like they think that it's supposed to represent like indigenous people or something. Am I in the right ballpark?
You're kind of going in the right direction. My first thought was Vasquez as well, but that apparently that's not an issue.
Good.
Any other? I'll give you one more possible guess.
Is it because I don't? Does it have something to do with the mother alien? I don't know. The fact that
what do you think that like women who can't give birth are angry at the fact that this big alien can?
No, I was thinking more because they're black creatures and it doesn't have a father. Sorry, that's really offensive. I shouldn't say it.
That's pretty bad. Wow. Wow.
No, that's a joke, people.
All these young,
the stereotype,
motherless and fatherless street thug aliens wandering around in the hood.
Yeah.
So, the real reason.
Okay.
Hold on. The film Aliens, masterpiece, has been accused of, in quotes, high-tech racism and android apartheid. Let me continue before you start. Due to the way in which human characters in the film deal with the presence of other, in brackets, or cisgenders or non-binary, relating to androids in the film. It has been suggested the character of Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, treated them with fear and suspicion, relating their struggle to current otherkin who exist.
Okay, can I just say that the reason that Ripley in that movie is suspicious and hesitant around androids is because of the events of the first movie, where her whole ship was basically murdered and betrayed by an android.
Yep.
That's the reason for that whole plot line, to show you that not all of them are bad.
An android that she trusted at the very start of the film Alien.
Yeah, so that makes the events of that movie make a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to get mad. I'm trying to...
I just... This is people who say that, like, I identify as an android, and this is offensive to me.
People who identify as, like... What is it called? Like, trans-abled, where they're like, I'm actually disabled. It's like, how can you possibly find aliens offensive?
The funny thing is as well, because it says in quotes, due to the way in which humans in the film deal with the presence of other, that always makes me think, do they actually also mean the aliens?
Yeah, because...
The way that, like, the white corporation is going to go and take over this planet, like you were kind of saying about, like, indigenous species, like...
Well, I don't think... I might not be remembering it fully correctly, but they never... What's the name of the android who follows them in Aliens? I forget his name.
Or the Bishop.
Actor. Bishop. They never particularly treat him with any disrespect, do they? It's not, at least not the Marines.
They think he's cool. Like the knife scene. They're like, oh, do it again. Like,
yeah, like... Sure, maybe Ripley, but again, she has a reason for it.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about it, like, if people really think that, look at, like, The Mandalorian, how he hates droids.
Yeah, I mean, that will probably be on the fucking list one day. Because I can see everyone talks about, like, when androids become sentient and, like, because we have robots in, like, Japan and stuff, and they're high tech, but when androids are inevitably a thing in, like, 50 years' time, are they going to get angry about their depictions? Are we going to have to ban all sci-fi films, including the greats like Blade Runner? What's the one where they're in the other with Oscar Isaac in it?
Oscar Isaac. Ex Machina.
Ex Machina. Like, is that stuff going to get banned because androids are going to be? This is horribly offensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just... Oh, God, it's just...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's other movies that are probably worse that you could stick on this list. Like...
What about iRobot?
Yeah.
Will Smith fucking hates robots. But again, he has a reason.
What about Bicentennial Man, where this robot, this, like, other force... basically transcends to become a human and marries the child he used to care for.
Well, that's
he
the
raised
thing,
like this infant and then he became a human just so he could fuck it.
It's almost it's funny actually because Bicentennial Man, when you think about it, is almost a good film for like inclusion and becoming what you want, and because his goal is to become something completely different, and he goes through all the struggles of that. He loses people, he loses what he is, but then he finds, it's a good film. But like, all I typed in was Bicentennial Man issues or racism, and there's an article that says Bicentennial Man actually sends a very poor message about individualism.
That's what like the media is great at, or like this kind of SJW media, that it's great at twisting anything.
Yeah.
And like, really, I think it should just be left up to the individual who, instead of people being like, this movie's racist, this movie's, says or does racist or offensive things. It should be up to the individual to watch it and decide for themselves.
That's a good point. So I'm just reading through this article about Bicentennial Man, and right, okay.
What does it say?
It's basically someone saying that the film is unfortunately it's a slave allegory.
I mean,
he's a fucking butler.
He's a robot butler.
He's a robot butler, and they treat him with the family love him.
Yeah, like they think he's great.
I mean, yes, perhaps he does look horrifically goofy to the point that I'm like, this is awful.
I love that the robot, when he's a robot, he still does kind of look like Robin Williams. Like, I don't know how they quite pulled it off.
The longer you look at it, the funnier. Okay, that is pretty fucking goofy.
I want to know how they did it as well. Like, did they take a face mold of Robin Williams?
I imagine so, because there are some moments where it's like CG. I mean, bad CG, but then like it must be it's like an animatronic kind of. It's cool.
Also, I like the I forgot about the photo I put in earlier above this. The Jack Nicholson fat and retarded.
I love about everything we've been saying about like inclusion, politics, like social politics, and here's this picture.
That is a Google search of Jack Nicholson. I mean, to be fair, that suit is pretty dope.
Yeah, I know. He's balling, like, and he's got it like wired onto him, like, cool.
Yeah.
It's funny, all of this, like, actually, like, I didn't want to get into it, but like the whole transphobishness of stuff and like all these SJW attacks, like obviously Cyberpunk has come under that as well because they have like billboards. We've already spoken about it, but it's like,
yeah,
I don't know. I think that falls on deaf ears for me. Like, I don't get any of that criticism. But I was going to say, like, we haven't even spoken about, like, have you been playing anything? Have you watched anything recently?
I just beat yesterday Spider-Man Miles Morales. Really enjoyed it.
You liked it?
I did. Super glitchy. I know we can't really talk about glitches, with Cyberpunk, because nothing really compares to that. But like, the story was really good. I love like Miles and a lot of characters. I thought, like, talking about inclusion again, they actually did a lot of it pretty well. Like, there's like that mute or deaf street girl or street art girl who's in it. She's pretty cool. And it shows that Miles knows like ASL, which is kind of cool. It's little sometimes it felt like there's one character in it who has a girlfriend, and it kind of feels a few times that it's thrown in your face that she has a girlfriend. Like, you don't ask. And she's just like, by the way, I have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
But whatever, that's fine. I don't really care. I would say the villain's kind of cool in it, but also kind of cringy. Like the idea of the villain is cool. You
I'm
might
sure we
disagree.
can spoil like one of the villains because it's in all the stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing I found is like it's that typical shady mega corporation and white guy wants to like destroy the place without. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
this is good for you, blah blah blah. But actually, I'm going to ruin their life.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And he's the guy who gets super angry at like the grunts who work for him, and he's like, "I will tell you again, or I will have you fed to the sharks." It's so fucking dumb. And there's a moment where he talks to Miles at some point, and like in a cutscene, and I laughed out loud because his dialogue is trash.
It's really goofy, and it doesn't help that it's Troy Baker doing the voice, and he doesn't put on a voice or anything. It's just his.
It's just Troy Baker,
which he used to be really good at like voice acting. He played like some of the best characters, like Booker DeWitt, Joel from Last of Us, bunch of other stuff. But now he literally just like it feels like he's given up. Like he doesn't attempt at all. Like he was in the Avengers game as well, apparently, and he was awful in that.
He just sounds like Troy Baker there as well.
And it's like so half-assed.
Maybe he knew that like his villain wasn't technically the real, not villain, but like the real issue of the game, like the real conflict. So he was probably just like, fuck it. Like I'll do my like 20 lines and leave.
Yeah. Also, with the voice acting in the game, it kind of annoyed me a little bit that all of like the like little grunts and enemies that you have to fight, all of them sound like they're voiced by Yuri Leventhal, who obviously voices Peter Parker, and it's like so obvious.
They all sound like the villains, like the NPC villains in like Arkham.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking of them.
Arkham City.
They all
sound like that.
Throughout all those games, they all have like the same like 3 voices. Like Nolan North does one of them. There's like that gruff. I don't know who does the voice. One, and there's like one other one.
It's funny because it's funny because like a game like Miles Morales, the immersion doesn't get broken when it's like that, because you're not really immersed in the game in the sense of like, wow, this world could actually be real and stuff. Like it's a hyper stylized, cartoonish kind of like more MCU take on stuff, but still, it's like that.
Yeah,
I'm having that same issue with like Cyberpunk, where it's like everyone in every NPC is like, "Hey y'all, what are you looking at?" And then you go to the next guy, it's like, "What are you looking at?" And the next guy's like, "Yo, what are you looking at, bitch?"
That's great.
That's great. Man, like.
I mean, like, yeah, again, in Miles Morales, that doesn't really take me out of it, because I don't really, you don't really care too much about that. You're swinging around the city, you're not like talking or walking around NPCs. But see, I would care if they fucked it up in a game like Arkham. Like if any of the Arkham games did that, I would be like really annoyed, because every time I play those games, I will like wait to listen to all of the NPC dialogue in like the Predator sections before taking them all out.
It's cool because a lot of the times in that, like, especially in certain areas where you go through it and you're not going to go back through it again. Like, I don't mean the open world, because some of them, they do repeat the same stuff, but like the actual, you're going through the vents and shit, and they talk about story specific stuff.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's like really cool.
Not just like people being like, "How's the weather today?" It's good. Like in Arkham, they'll even talk about like, they'll be like, "Oh, how's your family?" Or like they'll talk about their life outside of Arkham Asylum and shit. It's really cool.
Yeah, it makes you feel bad when you like bludgeon their skull.
Like it. I think a lot of games do kind of miss that. Like, I mean, the stealth sections in the Spider-Man games, especially Miles Morales, are pretty dead. Like, they're not that interesting. But like having that kind of thing, I think, would really help, because all the people in that talk about are just rocks on like this evil company. They don't talk about anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, it is quite like generic. It's just super generic, and that's what I don't like about the game. They had to give you enemies to fight that were powered up and like militant, but it's always a military. It's always a high-tech military operation in all these
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
Like, but it's fine. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I think the characters like make up for it, and all the like good things far outweigh any of the bad. Like, and that's kind of like I know you're not going to play Cyberpunk for a while, which is good because
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be fixed.
I
by
honestly
then.
don't understand. Oh, sorry, go on.
I just said hopefully it'll be fixed relatively soon.
Yeah, I mean they put out that stupid statement that's basically saying that like they knew how bad it was going to be. They didn't want to tell anyone. They hid it from people.
Yeah.
Like that all aside, like when the game's finally patched properly in like February, it seems. Like I have issues with the game, not including the bugs and stuff, but there's just issues with the game. Like I love the world is phenomenal. The characters are phenomenal. The writing is great. Sometimes it's really bad, but only in the moments where like it's characters you're never going to see again. It's like,
Yeah.
but, like the world is breathtaking. Like some of the story stuff is excellent. But there's stuff about the game that you're like, even GTA does this. Like GTA 5, like things that
Like-
you would have imagined you'd been able to do in this game that they kind of promised or said about, or in the marketing, it's like you can do this and that. One thing, when you make your character, make sure it's a character you like the look of. You can't change it, despite the world being all about. The whole point in Night City is that
changing.
people changing themselves, and that's the issue with like the politics in the world. You can't change yourself. There's not even a fucking hair barber. There's not. You can't get like augments to make yourself look different, plating, or like change like the color of stuff. Even in The Witcher, you could dye certain clothes and materials to make
Yeah.
things look a certain way. You can't buy other apartments. You can't like go into all the buildings you think you can, because they'll have like doors open thing. You press it and it says locked. You can't unlock that ever. It's just there to make you think,
That you could.
oh, I could have gone in this building at some point.
Yeah, or if I'd have upgraded my lock picking ability, then I could have gone in there. But really, you
and it's
can't.
like, yeah, like it doesn't really bother me because I wasn't a massive hype fanboy of this game anyway. I'm getting out of it what I wanted, but there are things where you're like, yeah, this game's been in development since 2000 and probably 12, 11.
Well, it was literally announced 8 years ago now.
So if it was announced then, they must have been working on it
For like
that year
yeah.
or the year before.
Yeah,
And it's like they're assisted. A good analogy for the game, right? It's really wide. There is so much to do, but all of it is really shallow. But that shouldn't put you off if like, because I'm really enjoying it. Like it's one of those things where I'm playing it for 3 hours and then I'm like, something happens, it crashes, it bugs out, and I'm like, fuck this game. Half an hour later, I'm like, oh my god, I really want to play Cyberpunk.
right.
And it's like, there's certain things where like the immersion in the game is phenomenal if there isn't like 15 characters all like in this weird hexagon glitch where they're like flying through the air at you.
Like one arm's like tweening off, like going through the roof.
Yeah, or they're talking to you really seriously and their arms like...
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
like when you get past that, the story itself is like excellent. I haven't even hit the fucking title card yet though. I'm not even out of the intro. I've been playing for like 12 hours. So.
yeah, I've been told it's like it takes like 6 hours at least of like just pure gameplay to get to the title card.
Yeah.
I mean,
And like it's really good. It's just it's so half baked, man. I wish they should have delayed it till next year. I don't know what they were thinking.
I mean, for me, I going into that game, what I mainly want out of it is a good story and cool like combat sections and like being able to choose your play style. Those are kind of the main things I want out of that game. And from the sounds of it, like there is some of that to some degree at least.
It's definitely like it's kind of half and half because I wanted to go through it playing stealth and like with blades and knives and shit like that. But like you end up kind of not being able to. You can still do stealth sections, but inevitably, because of the AI being so dumb as fuck,
Yeah.
at times, they're going to see you. And then it's just guns blazing. Like, if one enemy sees you, you're on high alert the entire time. So then you're like, fuck it, fine. And then you end up you're automatically putting skill points into everything. My skill tree is like perfectly well-rounded. And it's like I can play any style I want. It's almost like
But
you have the choice to be just stealth, but you're also on the side going to be getting perks for like shotgun wielding. And
yeah. That's pretty
it's still cool. Like there was a mission where I ran into. I went through stealthily, and it was a proper like it was like there's like an Asian Yakuza kind of gang in it.
Yeah.
And I went through this really stealthily and all this. But then right at the end, I got to the guy I had to take out, did it, and some guy through a window saw me, and I was like, shit. And the music kicks in, and you're like, all right, fuck it. I'll get the katana out. I'll go around. And I was just, you're like proper like doing all these John Wick moves. And you're like, okay, that was actually awesome. I stealthed in and I did that. And then I left and just obliterated the place. And it's like,
that is pretty awesome.
Even though it's probably kind of buggy and like the game is like, I don't know, like, it makes me sad at times, like not angry. It makes me genuinely sad when things are fucked up in it. Because you're like,
it could be so awesome if it wasn't.
Yeah. And it's a real shame that like the game has all these issues. Like going around the world, like I've driven because I don't want to see the world that way. The driving sucks. The second you get in a car, the population disappears.
Yeah.
Do you remember those old trailers they show even recently where it's like populated to fuck? All of them disappear. Everything is a blank, blurry texture. And you're like, why would I want to do this?
That sounds awful.
Hopefully that's patched, but I feel like that is just an issue with the game. Like,
I mean, I remember they gloated so much about their like rendering systems, like probably like a year or so ago. How they're like they can like render so much at once because of I forget the exact like method they use, but like if you're in a building and you look out like a window, you can see everything because of it's rendering like specific sections or something. And to see that kind of all go out the window is a bit disheartening.
It's strange because, like, to its credit, at times if you're in like V's apartment, you have like your apartment, you can whatever you go in, and you look out the window. Yeah, the world is there, but when you go down to street level, it's still there, but the textures are just like gone.
Yeah.
Or like you're walking around and people are like glitching in front of you and stopping you, and it's like. But when it's at night, weirdly, I've had better luck with it. Like. There are certain, I'll say this, like the world is so well designed that like it's so vertical, like you're going up and down street levels. There's like all these neon, like disgusting, like slums, and then there's like these high, like nice, like I don't know. It puts you in like really cool scenarios, like gameplay wise and stuff. But anyone going into this thinking it was going to like fill their pants with jizz, like it's not the game we've all been waiting for. It's not the game of the century. It's just a very good sci-fi. It's Fallout. It's basically what Fallout should be.
I think that's what sucks about it because we haven't had a game like that in so long. A game that is like this century-defining moment, like for what a game can do. Like, because I feel like we had that with like quite a few things before, like everything like Skyrim, like a lot of the Bethesda stuff, like. From the early 2010s.
Yeah.
Where it was like, this is like what gaming can be.
Yeah. I think from what I've seen, like playing it on a PC at high-end specs, like this, it is almost a masterpiece. Yeah. From a story level and character level, like it's phenomenal. Like I love these. But then it's just like the bugs and glitches and little things that just don't add up. All the systems that are in place, like because it was being made in a vacuum, it's like people were disappointed when Fallout 4 came out because it wasn't the jump they expected. It had a bit better graphics, but the systems were the same. It's basically that where it's like I said, there's so much to do, but everything's kind of shallow. But I don't mind that really because that's not what I expected of it. I didn't think it was going to be, I don't know, stupid deep.
I was just thinking, like, for like graphically and all that, people complaining about it. When they developed it, from what I've been told, like it's basically specifically built for like NVIDIA like RTX graphics cards or something like that. So if you don't have one of those, it like just simply can't do a lot of the things it's meant to, which is why a lot of people are like, you see like those what's the rapper who's in it, and there's that shot of him in the smoky car.
Oh, like Run the Jewels.
Yeah.
Go. Yeah, it is stuff like that, and it's bad. But like, unless you have the comparison screenshots next to you when you're playing, you forget about it. Really, unless he glitches out, because there was one where he like leant forward in the car and then he like lifted up like this, and was like twirling around, and I was like, "Oh, that's funny."
It's awesome though.
But some of the trailers I look back on where it's like it ends the trailer and it's like it's gonna be out when it's ready, because they were like, haha, like we're not gonna release this until it's done.
Yeah. So then why did you release it when it wasn't done?
But like I said, I think it's still a great game. It's just marred by limitations of the hardware, which is an issue. But,
that sucks.
But I do feel like February they're going to add like DLC and stuff, because they said that they are adding loads of shit in free. So I think that like the things I was saying that are shallow, like they are going to add in like you can buy apartments and you can do all this kind of cool shit that you wanted to do. It's like,
I mean, CD Projekt Red, they are like, with all the stuff they did for like The Witcher, like they're a really good developer, especially with like the community and stuff. So it does suck to see them like do this kind of thing, but also seeing them kind of go back on it and be like, no, we want to fix this.
Yeah.
Make it right. It's kind of cool.
But what I hate is you see people like fucking Angry Joe doing like Twitter rants saying about like how everyone should be ashamed of it who worked on it and all this, and it's like the developers worked super hard, but it was the executives that forced them to get it out.
Yeah, it's not the developers' fault, really.
No. Like all the hardworking like artists, and it's a shame, because I'd hate to be one of them right now and having people who know them, like friends who have bought the game and maybe had like shit experiences with it.
Yeah.
And it's like there's nothing they could have done.
No, I mean, like,
I don't know. But it's funny because people are gone.
But if you gave any developer like the time and money and resources, they could make like these amazing games. But like the problem is like with the amount of time and money it would take to make them, if like Cyberpunk was exactly what people thought it was going to be, that game wouldn't be out for 10 years and they'd never make enough money to make it sort of a, what do you call it, like they wouldn't actually make money from it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's funny because like people are using this like hyperbole of like, oh, but this is CD Projekt Red, they were supposed to be better than this. It's like, if everyone's honest with themselves, the majority of people have only played Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Did anyone else play? I mean, I played Witcher 2 because I got it on like Steam. But it's like these people saying that like, oh, they've fallen from grace, like my Lord and Savior. You just liked Witcher 3. Yeah. That's the only other thing they've done.
Yeah. And like, well, yeah, Witcher 3 is great, but like you can't, like, looking at like the first Witcher and shit, or like Witcher 2 or whatever, they're completely different games.
Yeah, exactly. But then you also have the other side where people are like, oh, give them credit, like they haven't done a big open world game. Like, are you kidding me? Like The Witcher was like the biggest open world I've ever been in.
It's one of the most impressive things like to come out of this gen, really.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny because like I've never seen a game that can be so bad and so amazing at the same time, which is hard, like really off-putting to say and really sad. But hopefully when you come to play it, most of like the annoying things will be gone and you can just experience the story.
I'd like to think so, but
because the story is fucking awesome. Like, and I'm not even far into it, but maybe that falls off a bit, but I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Anyway, I've got to go. We've been going for like 15 years. So.
Yeah, we've been going for a long time.
We've been going longer than Cyberpunk was in development. So
yeah.
That was the last episode of this.
The seventh and last episode.
Garbage Fire.
This terrible podcast that no one watches and no one likes, but
yeah. And I guess I'll save my big topics for the last episode, like the things I've got up here. Morgan Freeman, creepy. Reese Witherspoon smells. So we are basically TMZ.
I'm curious about both of those actually, so
And so
I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Right. Well, sorry for bumming everyone out with about 45 minutes of torture talk.
I'm not even gonna lie. I might actually cut some of that out because it's so depressing.
Just no, don't cut it out. Just put pictures of like bunny rabbits,
happy buttons and button. Yeah, I'll just put nice photos. All right. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Right.